Hey, welcome to Half the Battle.
Last year, we looked at the entire Mass Device miniseries, the cartoon that started it all for G.I. Joe. So this year, I'm tackling The Revenge of Cobra, the second miniseries. After the success of the Mass Device, both as a cartoon series and a giant toy commercial, a second miniseries was ordered and released in 1984, featuring toys from 84 and 85.
So let's dig in.
And of course, we'll be starting with episode 1 in the Cobra's Pit. Yeah, obviously starting with episode 5 would be kinda dumb. We start off with the opening theme, which has been slightly altered from the first miniseries, referring to Cobra the enemy now instead of Cobra and Destro. It also has all new footage, the best show off all the new toys you're gonna see. I do love how they made a title for The Revenge of Cobra. It's the coolest thing they've ever done for the cartoon intros. Our story begins with the Joes and Optimus Prime, apparently, transporting a new laser core for their cannon. Okay, so it's not Optimus Prime, but wouldn't that have been cool? It's a tempting target for Cobra, who, sure enough, are poised to attack, led by Cobra Commander?
What the hell?
Okay, even though this is called The Revenge of Cobra, it's not a direct sequel to the Mass Device, or at least stuff must have happened in between the two miniseries, because at the end of Mass, Cobra Commander, and everybody else except Destro, had been captured.
But none of that is ever referenced here.
Here, the Commander is just out and about. Like the opening credits, the opening battle is a good one, but you're very much aware they are presenting new toys to you. On Cobra's side, they highlight the Stinger Jeep, Scrap Iron, and Firefly. Also the Flight Pod or Trouble Bubble, but they were clearly working off a prototype design for that one, as it only vaguely resembles the actual toy. The battle seems to be going great for Cobra,
Now there's something I don't get to say very often.
with them separating the truck from the convoy and getting men on there. Duke attempts to stop them, putting up a good fight, but even with the help of the almighty Snake Eyes, they can't stop the bad guys and even end up getting captured. Duke getting captured by Cobra.
Wow, what an original idea.
What is surprising though is that Cobra Commander gets captured at the same time.
I have issues with this whole plotline, but I'll save that for the end of the review.
The rest of Cobra escapes in that gorgeous Cobra aircraft that should have really been a toy. Come on, HasLab, get on that.
Looks like I'm in charge now.
And a new toy, character, Flint, is now in charge. The commander is being brought to Blackwater Prison, so Colonel Sharp heads there, in a vehicle that would have also made a neat little toy, but alas. Oh yeah, Colonel Sharp is the commanding officer of the Joes in this series.
Screw Hawk, I guess. He didn't have a toy out at the time.
Also, Sharp was cruising around the swamp for reasons that are never explained. And here we're introduced to a lot of people's favorite band of misfits, outside of the actual misfits I guess, Zartan and the Dreadnoks. They intercept the colonel and force him into the water, where he's promptly captured. Zartan has to temper his men's enthusiasm.
Get back, you rowdy lot of vagabonds!
I mentioned this years ago, but listen to Zartan's chest again.
Get back, you rowdy lot of vagabonds!
Sound familiar? Yeah, that's a lightsaber.
And what is a lightsaber sound doing in a G.I. Joe cartoon? Well, one of the Korean animation studios that worked on this also worked on Muppet Babies, which had a Star Wars themed episode. George Lucas, who was old friends with Jim Henson, let him use Star Wars footage and sound effects from the movies for that episode. The Korean studio then quietly added those to their own sound library for future use.
And now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Anyway, Zartan disguises himself as Sharp to take his place, and I like how the mask initially looks just slightly less real than the actual face. That's some nice animation there. Meanwhile, the Joes have gotten some Sky Strikers to follow the big Cobra plane, but they are in the sights of Destro, who seems quite pleased at their arrival.
Excellent!
Oh, hi there, Storm Shadow. Gotta say, not as impressive a debut as Zartan. A couple of other things are introduced here. The new Cobra Temple that rises out of the ground. Geez, what kind of budget do these guys have? And the MacGuffin that will be the focus of the miniseries.
Weather Dominator!
Yes, the Weather Dominator. Unlike the Mass Device, I don't think I need to explain what this thing does. But before we get to that, we need to check in with Zartan, who arrives at the prison, where the Joes are handing over the commander.
I can't wait to begin his psychological evaluation for the parole board.
Okay, dumb social commentary aside, I don't think you can parole somebody before they've had a trial and have been convicted and, most importantly, sentenced. Zartan tells them to scram, and the second their backs are turned, the bad guys strike. No, really, I don't think Gung-Ho had the time to get out of the corridor yet. They should have cut back to Destro or something so that some time could pass. Anyway, the doctor turns out to be the Baroness, and they enact their escape plan, though it doesn't go off without a hitch.
Gas!
And in the water up ahead. Oh no!
See what I mean? Gung-Ho did not have the time to get all the way to the cage in that little time.
I know it's a small point, but it just bugs me is all.
With the help of the Dreadnoks, they make it out and onto the swamp skiers, but the Joes are in hot pursuit. Their effort is valiant and shows off the Skyhawk toy, but futile as Zartan uses a smokescreen to escape.
They're gone, just like they were swallowed up by the swamp.
Back with Destro, he fires the Weather Dominator, creating a storm cloud.
Scarlet, pull back with your squadron and keep us in sight.
How about you all fly higher or try to avoid it some other way? It doesn't look that big. The cloud immediately turns into a tornado or hurricane, I'm not picky, causing Flint, Roadblock and Mud to go down. Oh, and Junkyard, because he was in the jet too.
Hey, he's right. There's no rule that says a dog can't be a pilot.
The rest of the Joes retreat and Cobra's plane lands. They unload the core and the prisoners, and this bit is almost beat for beat the same as in the mass device, as Duke tries to fight off all of Cobra to escape. Only Snake Eyes is there this time. Though it is funny that Mr. Invincible Ninja is subdued by 2 lowly Cobra troops.
Yeah, the cartoon did not have the same reverence for Snake Eyes that the comic had.
With the laser core, the Weather Dominator now has a near unlimited range.
I miss the Cobra Commander as deeply as you do, but we can attend to that in good time.
No time in prison is good!
It's rare for the commander to get one over on Destro, so I really dig this. I also like how we immediately see how Destro doesn't like Zartan, something that'll be consistent through the series.
Zartan, and they have no commitment to our cause.
Something else that's interesting, this is like the only time we see the commander switch from his helmet to his hood, and it looks like he keeps on part of the armor. Anyway, with a brand new weapon, it's time for Cobra Commander to do his favorite thing, appear on every TV in the world.
See if you can put a tracer on his speech.
Yeah, all you need is a garbage detector.
5 of our people are missing.
The commander gives a demonstration of the Weather Dominator, as well as a weird line delivery.
The rule of Cobra!
Okay, that was just weird.
After that, Destro shows off another new invention, though the commander is skeptical.
I'm sure Flint and the world will quake with terror at the sight of a dried-up sprig of...
Destro spits in the face of biology and physics as a single drop of water turns the herb into a deadly vine.
It has the grip of steel.
He's trying to strangle me.
Okay, I've seen enough Japanese cartoons to know where this is going.
Lucky for Zartan and Hoodie, the vines die without water. Destro has put dried vines in the very canyon Flint and the others crashed, meaning they're not gonna have a nice time. And that's where this episode, part 1 of The Revenge of Cobra, ends, with Flint getting taken down by the vines. And that was In the Cobra's Pit.
It was pretty good, but I thought it borrowed just a bit too much from the first miniseries.
Cobra attacks to capture a vital piece of equipment, Duke gets captured, and Cobra uses their stolen thing for a super weapon. It's almost as if The Revenge of Cobra is a remake or soft reboot of the cartoon instead of a true sequel.
And that's a pity because it would have been so easy to make it a true sequel without needing much new animation even.
Just start the episode with Cobra Commander being transferred to Blackwater Prison. Have an opening narration beforehand using mass device footage saying the commander has been captured, tried and convicted and is going to a top secure location. All the while Destro has been rebuilding Cobra. That way that parole line would actually make sense. So then Zartan breaks him out and the opening attack happens, cutting out the bit where the commander gets captured again, obviously.
Boom! I just bridged the 2 miniseries in 2 minutes.
Anyway, judging the episode by itself, it was pretty good with some amazing animation in places. Like here where the Baroness throws that grenade. I also like that Zartan was well established, as well as his dynamic with Destro and Cobra.
Much better than the Joes at any rate.
Because honestly, it seemed like Flint, Roadblock and other new characters were just there. Though, to be fair, that also applies to Scrap Iron, Firefly and Storm Shadow, with ninja lever pulling action here. Overall, a good if somewhat formulaic opening of the new miniseries that makes me look forward to more.
Oh, and the best part?
No bloody jinx anywhere, as the character didn't exist yet.
The curse, or should I say jinx, has been broken.
Today, we'll be taking a look at the Vines of Evil, aka The Revenge of Cobra Part 2. In the first episode, Cobra Commander got captured and pretty much immediately escaped, something that also happened in the comic. Duke got captured, because of course he did, as well as Snake Eyes. Meanwhile, Destro had invented the Weather Dominator, a device that, dominates the weather, and Cobra threatens the world with it. They unleash it on the Joes, causing several of them to crash their Sky Strikers. Destro also invented vines that turn into Japanese porn when wet. These are the titular Vines of Evil that are giving Flint trouble as the episode ended.
Which brings us to Part 2.
The episode starts with Flint and Roadblock enjoying the tentacle fun, but they are saved when Mud turns on the downed jet's engines, which either burns the vines or dries them out. Though I don't think they should be standing so close to the thing. Meanwhile, Duke and Snake Eyes are subjected to the Cobra Arena of Sport. That's the exact same thing that happened to Duke in the first miniseries.
Yeah, remember when I said this was more a soft reboot than a sequel?
It's reusing plot points like this that makes me think that. They even use neurocontrollers, similar to the mind control bands from the mass device to make them fight. Also, why does Duke have a lightsaber? Like a dumbass, the commander talks about his plan to wipe out Washington DC right in front of the prisoners. But how will they get word to the Joes?
Through the power of bullcrap, of course.
Snake Eyes has a communication device on his belt, and they bring down an electrified tower that's there for some reason to use as an antenna. And before you ask why the mute guy would have a communicator, it uses Morse code. Still, that should have electrocuted him, because that is kinda like trying to charge your smartphone by having it struck by lightning, while holding it. They get the message out, though the commander tries to stop them by having a bunch of unarmed officers jump in Tarzan style and fist fight them. Really, guys? No guns?
Budget cuts must be hitting Cobra pretty hard, I guess.
Still, it works, and like in the previous episode, it's very satisfying to see Snake Eyes, the ultimate badass, getting his ass handed to him by a bunch of nobodies. Okay, so now the Joes know the next target, but how does that help them? They still need to find a defense against the Weather Dominator.
And they do, but it's basically magic.
Doc has invented a mirror that can absorb and then redirect energy. How the medical professional is an expert on energy weapons, I'll never know, but this is the cartoon where everybody, including the dog, is a qualified fighter pilot.
If it works, it'll absorb, reflect, and redirect energy.
It works. Doc, you're a genius.
So they head to DC, which is apparently within driving distance of G.I.Joe headquarters, even though that's in a desert. Meanwhile, Flint and Co. have constructed a helicopter out of fighter jet parts, because this is the A-team now, I guess, to get out of the viney Death Valley. They make it out, but only because Roadblock sacrifices himself after getting grabbed.
You'll never make it with me on board. I'll fight my way out.
It'll take more than super celery to finish him off.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he'll be just fine. They get about half a mile before the thing falls apart, and they are still in Cobra territory. Fortunately, the two guys they had guarding the entire desert are easily taken out, and they take their boots, their clothes, and their motorcycle. I mean Stinger Jeep. Meanwhile, back in Tentacle Hill, the Vines just, die due to lack of water. So, they would have been fine if they had stayed there. The whole helicopter thing was just to get them to the next plot point. Meanwhile, Cobra unleashes their weather assault on DC. They start with a tornado, something those energy mirrors can do precisely dig against, so we're off to a great start. Also, giant hailstones.
storm this way fast!
So far, I'm calculating about 77 years of bad luck for the Joes.
We switch to, the planet from Trigun, I think, where there's a Cobra town in the desert. Flint and Mud go to the creatively named Cobra Cafe, where nobody is glad they came.
Nice bunch of weapons you got.
Just what we've been looking for.
Yes, they do have weapons. Guns, in fact.
While you have a crowbar. Not the smartest bunch, are they? I know nobody ever dies in the G.I.Joe cartoon, but it's amazing how many problems could be solved if they just shot somebody in the head. Also, they're wearing Cobra uniforms. Do these a-holes really want to mess with a ruthless terrorist organization? Then again, maybe they didn't believe they were Cobra, considering Flint kept his damn beret on his head. Nice blending in there.
That's like if an undercover cop would insist on still wearing a badge.
Anyway, the inevitable barroom brawl breaks out, but one stranger reading a newspaper stays out of it.
Yes, this is the long-awaited debut of Shipwreck.
You, don't live around here, do you? I'm with myself, and anybody who can pay my price. The name's Shipwreck.
He's one of the few characters to get an actual origin in the cartoon, and it's not unlike the introduction of another lovable rogue in a galaxy far, far away. Back in DC, Cobra starts to use lightning to finish the Joes off. But this proves to be a mistake, as it's the first and only time they use energy. Energy the mirrors can absorb and redirect.
No! Redirect the energy flow! Yo-Joe!
Destro soils himself as his chickens come home to roast instead of roost, and the Weather Dominator explodes.
The end. No, of course it isn't the end, because this is episode 2 of 5.
The thing explodes into 3 different pieces that are scattered across the globe. For some reason, this causes the weather to go haywire on a global scale, so they have to find those pieces, meaning the rest of the miniseries will be a scavenger hunt, much like the search for the elements in the mass device. This plot isn't repeated just because it's a soft reboot, but also to show off toys that are Arctic or water-based, so they need to go to different environments.
This is still a giant toy commercial after all.
Though I do appreciate how they subverted this by introducing the sailor in the middle of a desert. Speaking of which, Shipwreck takes them to his Millennium Falcon, a wind-powered desert boat. They take off but are caught by a sandstorm in a very impressive scene that reminds me of Fury Road.
Get your sea legs up!
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
And the episode ends with Mud going overboard and disappearing. Man, that's 2 people under his command that Flint's lost now.
That ain't gonna look good on his quarterly evaluation report.
And that was The Revenge of Cobra Part 2, aka The Vines of Evil, even though the vines weren't that big a part of it. Still, this was an excellent episode. It didn't feel like a toy commercial at all, unlike Part 1, and while it does ape the first miniseries, I enjoyed the subversion where Cobra's super weapon got destroyed right after they first attacked with it, setting up the rest of the series. Overall, yeah, great episode, a great continuation of the miniseries, and the debut of Shipwreck. Who could ask for more? Today, we'll be taking a look at The Revenge of Cobra Part 3. We kinda have to, because the last 2 cartoon reviews that I did were Parts 1 and 2.
First, a brief recap.
Cobra invented the Weather Dominator, guess what that thing does, and attacks. But the Joes managed to blow it up. Its pieces are scattered around the globe, and the race is on to find them. We start the cliffhanger from Part 2, where Mud got swallowed up by a sandstorm. Flint wades in to find him, and does. Though we probably should have suffocated by now. They hunker down until the storm passes and get on their way. Meanwhile, the Joes and Cobra converge on the island of no return, yeah, it's really called that, since there's one component there. A pretty good though one-sided battle breaks out. At the same time, 2 other groups head for the Palace of Doom. This also happens to be the name of the episode, but not before Flint and Co. make it back, leading to Shipwreck joining the team, I guess.
He's very, shipwrecky right from the start.
She's your buddy? I'd rather save yours.
Thanks.
Flint must be thrilled he's made a new friend.
This is all well and good, but I have a feeling that we're forgetting something. Oh right, Roadblock was still missing, though the Joes don't seem to give a crap about that. He's having some problems of his own, but fortunately Optimus Prime comes to the rescue. Oh come on, they totally reused Prime's vehicle model for this truck. He gets inside and finds it's more than meets the eye.
Condaloo West.
You're a girl.
You figured that out so fast you must be a rocket scientist.
Nice that the cartoon is doing the sarcastic commentary for me.
Back at the island with no return address, the Joes make landfall first, but Cobra is hot on their heels, with Firefly blowing up a path to the inner island. Before either side can get through, they're sucked into a whirlpool. Now, this may seem random, but remember, the weather is going haywire all over the world because of the destroyed Dominator. That's one of the reasons the Joes are going after the parts. At this point, the cartoon remembers the episode is called The Palace of Doom, and we've only seen it on a video screen, so we finally switched to that location.
About time too, since the episode is over halfway done at this point.
Once again, two teams meet and have a big old battle at the location. If it seems like I'm rushing through this, it's only because the battles in this episode are really good.
I got nothing to complain about.
Hell, even the reminder that this is a giant toy commercial is handled well, as I actually liked seeing the Jungle Trooper Recondo show up and lead the way. Lady J reckons a small team, her, Shipwreck and Gung-Ho, have a chance of reaching the component before Cobra, so they go in and pretty much immediately find it.
But this is where things go Bat Guano insane.
They accidentally activate a trap which makes the indigenous god statue come to life? What? Unfortunately, just as things get interesting, the episode cuts to commercial break, and we're back at the whirlpool afterwards.
Why do you have to blue ball me like that, cartoon?
Since the Joes never met a problem they couldn't blow up, Torpedo fires, torpedoes at the base of the whirlpool, dissipating it.
I don't think that's how any of that works!
Anyway, Spirit goes to the main island on his own, using the whale's sea sled, and I think that's the only time we ever see that dinky little thing in the cartoon. There's a brief interlude, a strange and intriguing bit with Zartan.
Zartan, where are you? I order you to respond to my orders.
Ain't you gonna answer the ladies, Arden?
When it serves my purpose.
After which we thankfully switch back to the Palace of Doom. Sure enough, the big statue gets up and breathes goddamn fire, so the Joes are toast. What is this? I don't even...
Luckily, it's Cobra to the rescue?
Yeah, Blood doesn't know about the statue, so he sends a giant freaking robot in after the Joes, leading to a kanju fight. This episode sure goes places.
Let them fight.
But since we can't have nice things for long, we go back to Spirit and the island that doesn't accept returns.
I feel another presence.
A presence I've not felt since...
That presence feels you as well.
And so begins the famous rivalry between Storm Shadow and... Spirit? Yeah, in the cartoon, that's what they went with. Every other piece of media, it's Snake Eyes versus Storm Shadow. But here, they didn't think they could do much with a mute guy, so they went with Spirit. Because indigenous people are mystical like ninjas? Anyway, back at the palace...
Detection device has picked up a mucho earthquake. Must have been triggered by the freak weather around the world.
Weather does not cause earthquakes!
Also, that technobubble doesn't explain how a mine detector detects incoming earthquakes. Weird how the robot fires a pink energy beam.
Too much pink energy is dangerous.
Anyway, the Joes are seeing all this and are like, my name's Jay and we're running away. But the earthquake has started up, tearing the ground apart, meaning Lady J gets to show off some acrobatics. Gung-Ho helps her, but I personally wouldn't have put down the thing that looks like a giant butt plug. That doesn't look comfortable to land on. Also, it leads to this happening.
Nice move, dumbass!
Shipwreck could have saved her while you held on to the bloody thing, you know. And the episode ends on an almost literal cliffhanger as Shipwreck and Gung-Ho fall to their deaths.
And that was the Palace of Doom.
Honestly, it was a great episode, though I could have done without them going back and forth between locations. Considering this is a miniseries, how about dedicating one episode each to the 3 fragments? Still, there was good action and plenty to be had, and nobody acted like an idiot, except maybe Gung-Ho at the end there. Hell, even Cobra Commander was competent, assigning his subordinates to their tasks without getting all whiny or throwing a tantrum.
Overall, yeah, terrific episode!
Now, some of you may be wondering why I didn't make a single Temple of Doom reference, considering the name of the episode. Well, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out in May of 1984, with this miniseries airing in September of that year, just 4 months later. And considering how long it takes to make a cartoon episode, let alone an entire miniseries, I'm chalking the similar names up to coincidence rather than a reference. Also, Temple of Doom did not have a giant Cobra robot in it, more's the pity.
To wrap things up, here's some flotsam and jetsam that I couldn't fit in anywhere else.
Enjoy Honda Lou while you can, cause unlike Shipwreck, she ain't a Hasbro character with a toy, so this miniseries is the last time you'll see her. Speaking of Shipwreck, here he flirts with Lady J, while after this series, it's mostly CoverGirl. Considering Flint is the jealous type, I think he might have gotten decked in between series. It's time we got back to the cartoon, and especially to the Revenge of Cobra miniseries, since I kinda wanted to finish that last year, but didn't get around to it.
First, a brief recap.
Cobra creates the Weather Dominator. It blows up. Weather goes haywire. Joe's and Cobra race to find the pieces. Shipwreck and Gung-Ho fall to their death. And now the story continues. Some other stuff may have happened, but we'll pick that up later.
Only one chance.
I'll stab them to death before the fall gets them. No, she saves them with a net javelin because those things sure exist. Meanwhile, there's still a fight on the island of no return, as you can see from all the lasers. You know, G.I. Joe was the original red versus blue.
If these readings are right, the freak weather has cracked the Earth's crust.
I was gonna call bullcrap on this, but no, weather can actually affect the Earth's crust like that.
Point to you, cartoon!
This does mean the clock is ticking for everybody there. Spirit and Storm Shadow are basically trapped together in a watery cave. They fight until they both realize they're being idiots.
There is too little air to waste it on pointless combat. Agreed. We must dwell on this.
Back with Optimus Prime and his clone army. Okay, it's just a Cobra convoy, but still. Roadblock and Honolulu arrive at Cobra headquarters. There, Cobra Commander has one of the best exchanges with Destro in the entire series.
That puts the struggle decidedly in my favor.
I, Destro? Surely you mean we. Unless we recover all 3 pieces of our Dominator, all of us will be finished!
It's rare to see the Commander successfully dunk on somebody else.
Usually, he's the donkey.
They are preparing to go to the roof of the world, which is about time considering we're 7 minutes in and this episode is called Battle on the Roof of the World. Meanwhile, Spirit and Storm Shadow figure out they can follow the airflow in the hopes of finding a way out, and they do. They leave through a blowhole.
Heh, blowhole.
You have saved my unworthy life. The Weather Dominator shall be yours.
Well, that was easy.
There's the piece of the Dominator, and only one Joe to worry about.
Or not.
Spirit ends up getting help from an unexpected place, though.
The Joe Warrior seems sure to lose, unless we intervene. We are on our side first and foremost. Score!
This is the miniseries that introduced Zartan, and it's nice to see him being out for his own interests straight away.
We must leave at once.
Our final destination, the roof of the world.
Finally, the episode is half over by now.
The Joes and Cobra arrive at the same time and head inside the roof of the world, I guess. Also, Zartan shows up, and I have to question the wisdom of wearing short sleeves and no sleeves in a clearly freezing environment. They make it in, and the roof is a giant ice rink? Okay, I gotta ask, where the hell are they anyway? The roof of the world would imply Mount Everest, but that doesn't have a giant ice rink on it.
That I know of. I've never been there.
Maybe they meant the top of the Earth, like when you look at a globe, so the North Pole, but that doesn't seem to be likely either. In conclusion, they just made a place up and didn't think some nerd would be analyzing the hell out of it 40 years later.
Talk about lack of forethought.
Anyway, we should check in with Cobra Commander, who's having a normal one.
Crush them! Demolish them, I say!
Oh right, Roadblock is in this story. Bet you had forgotten about him too, huh?
I wish to plan in private.
I ask myself the same question, fool. Easy for you to say, sucker. Now, splitting time, little buddy.
We'll fight for freedom wherever there is trouble.
Wait, the theme song exists in the cartoon universe itself? This raises many questions.
Like, is there a G.I. Joe cartoon in the G.I. Joe cartoon world? We know that later they make a G.I. Joe movie, so who knows? Roadblock and Hondalu give it their best, but end up captured anyway and are sent to the arena of sport, where they find Duke and Snake Eyes, who have been standing there the entire time since we last saw them, I guess? They're about to be attacked by Atari 2600 graphics.
But no time for that!
As with just under 3 frickin' minutes left in the episode, we finally get to the battle on the top of the world. Well, I say battle, but because they're on ice and the component looks like a giant bug, it's more like a hockey game with lasers.
Ha!
Man, Destro must really hate snow judging by that yell. So yeah, we get G.I. Joe on ice for a while, and it's a letdown for me as I don't think this is a very spectacular battle, or a battle at all. Okay, granted, hockey would be more fun if you could call in an airstrike, but still. Also, why are you shooting at the thing you're desperately trying to grab with lasers? Normally our guns make things go boom, but here they can just gently nudge an object. Even the guns from the Rattler? That thing should be in 1,000,000 pieces! Anyway, Zartan swoops in and grabs the thing, and says he's going to auction it off to the highest bidder, then causes an avalanche to make his escape. And the episode ends with a bunch of Joes about to be buried in snow. Don't worry, I'm sure next time there will be a javelin-assisted solution. And that was Battle on the Roof of the World, the 4th part of the Revenge of Cobra miniseries.
And honestly, it's the weakest episode so far.
Look, most of the episode was fine, it's just the ending segment. The so-called battle was so stupid. We were promised an exciting fight and we got ice-capades. Also, it was way too short. I mean, sure, if it was that stupid, I should be glad it was short, but what I wanted was a longer, proper battle.
And hey, I know, it's still the G.I. Joe cartoon. I'm not exactly expecting the opening to Saving Private Ryan here, but give me something!
And I still can't get over the fact that a lot of them aren't dressed for cold weather, like Destro and Zartan, who...
Hey, wait a minute!
I just realized, Zartan and the Dreadnoks climbed there, so where the hell did their motorcycles come from? Ugh, the last 4 minutes of this episode get dumber the more times I watch them. Though I did like Zartan's sudden but inevitable betrayal, and the dynamic between Spirit and Storm Shadow.
We are even now. When next we meet as enemies.
Overall, most of the episode was okay, but man, that ending!
There's just one part left, so I hope they stick the landing with the finale. That way, the Revenge of Cobra can at least end on a high note.
Well, we're finally finishing this. We're at the end!
Today, we're taking a look at Amusement Park of Terror, the last part of the Revenge of Cobra miniseries. And note that the episode is called Amusement Park of Terror, not The Amusement Park of Terror, which is kinda weird.
But first, the briefest of recaps.
Cobra invented the Weather Dominator. It exploded, Weather went nuts. Joes and Cobra have to find the pieces. But at the end of the last episode, Zartan went into business for himself, took the final piece and plans to sell it to the highest bidder. Also, some Joes were gonna get buried in ice.
And now the conclusion.
The solution to the avalanche is shooting it with lasers.
What?
Wouldn't that just drown them in water? Or if the temperature is high enough, surround them with superheated steam?
Either way, they should be dead.
But no, they're in an ice dome and Lady J gets them out with, what else? A javelin. With a huge diamond on top of it. You know, I would have loved to have been in the room when Hawk had talks with the Pentagon about his budget. General, why do you need such a big diamond? Why do you need a diamond at all? Well, maybe one day my troops will get encased in ice or something. Meanwhile, Zartan has made his way to Bayou World, an abandoned amusement park.
Wait a minute.
Villain who's a master of disguise? Amusement park? Holy crap, Zartan would be the ideal Scooby-Doo villain. And he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those meddling Joes. He makes his demands to both sides, but this allows them to pin down his location, so everybody's racing to get there.
Cobra Commander handles it well.
I must wait.
Meanwhile, Duke and Snake Eyes are still stuck in an Atari 2600.
We've got to reverse the polarity.
What, are you in Star Trek now?
On the low. Ready for a ride?
Phrasing!
So she does a pole dance, I guess, and short circuits to Tron Cobras. Zartan learns he's about to get his ass whooped, so he prepares his defenses. Meanwhile, and expect me to say meanwhile a lot, they crammed quite a bit into this final episode. Storm Shadow is sent to G.I.Joe HQ to steal their component.
Sleeping gas.
Sleeping gas throwing stars. Sure, why not? And now you know where Mission Impossible got that idea from. Meanwhile, back at the park, Cobra are the first to strike, while the Joes prefer to sneak in. Zartan's response is, unconventional to say the least.
Giddy cars.
For this part of the episode, the role of Zartan will be played by the Joker. Without realizing it, Cobra provides the distraction the Joes need to destroy the power plant, shutting off all the defenses. With both the Joes and Cobras closing in, Zartan decides to GTFO with the component, though I'm not sure how he's powering all that when his plant just blew up.
Maybe he's got a generator or something, I don't know.
Whee! The Dreadnoks get away, but Zartan isn't so lucky as Destro captures him and the component.
Remove him.
Hey look! Major Blood turns into a Cobra Trooper here.
Animation errors. No episode is complete without them.
Back at Cobra Temple, the captured Joes are just, wandering around until they get into the sewers, where Duke plants a homing device. The Joes pick up the signal and head out. Hey, wait a minute. Duke's been a prisoner for like the entire miniseries, and they never checked him for stuff like this?
You know what? Cobra deserves to lose.
They have all the parts now and are putting the Weather Dominator together. Also, Cobra Commander is uncharacteristically kind.
Punishment is the price for failure.
But he stole the laser core.
Which I now have.
This is just to keep the internal conflict between Zartan and Destro going, isn't it? Roadblock and Co. raid the storage room with the creeper vines. Yeah, remember those from way earlier? And so the final battle is upon us. The Joes versus the Weather Dominator. Wait, isn't that how this whole thing started?
Control it! Ship too heavy from ice and snow buildup!
So the Joes are fighting, weather, and seeing Shipwreck actually in the back of the Sky Striker with Lady J is a nice callback to when he tried to do that earlier.
Flint must be thrilled about that.
They're no match for the Dominator, so it's clear they'll need some inside help, which promptly shows up. As an aside, I did briefly wonder why they didn't just shoot at the Weather Dominator, but then I remembered that's how we got into this mess in the first place.
Cobra's elite troops, everybody!
Also, apparently they're the only two guys guarding the command center, as Roadblock can just run up to the Dominator's base and plant the vines. And the bad guys are all of a sudden thankful this isn't a Japanese cartoon. How would turning invisible help? Vines don't have eyes! And they're clever as they managed to shut down the Weather Dominator. And with the weather no longer being dominated, Cobra's conventional forces are no match for the Joes. In a last-ditch effort, they try lowering the tempo, though I'm not sure how that would help. They'd still know where they are. Also, looks like Cobra's getting screwed. In an impressive bit of animation, Flint prevents the sinking. And with that, the battle is won and Cobra Commander is captured again, though Destro and Zartan get away. Nice of them not to unmask him then and there, isn't it? So that day is saved and they use the Dominator to fix all the weather going haywire around the world. And that was Amusement Park of Terror, and indeed, that was the revenge of Cobra.
Cobra didn't really get that much revenge, did they?
So, was this a good finale? I'd say yes, though they did cram an awful lot into one episode. We did spend some time at the park, but it would have been better if the whole episode was about that. A tense three-way battle in an unusual environment, with high stakes. I would have made a 6th episode for the things Duke and Co got up to in the final battle.
Now, for most of this series, I haven't talked that much about the animation.
That's because it was mostly fine, the occasional inevitable error notwithstanding. In this last episode though, the quality took a nosedive. I mean, just look at this. Was this because it was the last episode and they ran out of time and/or budget? In that case, 6 episodes, and thus a bigger budget, would have been a solution once again.
As for my thoughts on the overall series...
Well, it was a fun story and introduced a lot of iconic characters to the cartoon, like Zartan, Lady J, Storm Shadow, and of course fan favorite Shipwreck, so that's all good. We can't deny the plot was a complete rehash of the first miniseries, The Mastifies, though. Cobra has a powerful weapon, both sides search the globe for components while showing off new toys.
Having said that,
the story was still entertaining, and they added variety with Zartan's betrayal and the Joes not trying to build their own Dominator. Overall, I can recommend you watch the entire series, you'll have a fun time. Okay, we finally wrapped up the Revenge of Cobra.
What's next for the cartoon reviews? I haven't decided yet. Let me know what you want to see in the comments below. Just check my channel to see if I haven't already reviewed it. I have done a lot of these. Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing.
Raindrops are falling on my head. Raindrops are falling on my head. Raindrops are falling on my head.
Dooby dooby doo, where are you? We got some work